everybody, and welcome to A Balanced Life with Dr. Jacquie here at Black Star Network, where today on our show, we're going to be discussing part 2 of what it means to be bold and balancing. I know it's not easy, but we're going to give it a try. Today on our show, we're going to be discussing with our amazing guests those things that often keep us off balance as it relates to how do you decide when it's time to let things go? What does your circle look like? How are you moving your life forward for betterment, even in the midst of all the things that you've been facing? We're going to be joined today by Dr. Tierney, our life and level up coach. Also, Katrina Smith, our professional coach and education specialist, and then none other than being Charlotte Avery, our family life strategist. Hey, ladies.
Hello, hello, hello.
You know, last week we had such a stimulating conversation. I'm like, you know what? Let's do it again. Part 2. I mean, when we were talking last week, and for those of you who were watching, thank you for sending out your messages and your comments. I know we hit some heavy things talking about mean girls and how to move forward in life, what it means to have this blended balance and setting boundaries and barriers, and what is actually the difference. So today I just want to kind of jump right in. You know, Dr. Tierney, I'm coming to you because you hit the people in the mouth last week with this whole notion of what it looks like to have boundaries and barriers. And what is the difference between those things? And can you talk to us a little bit about why we need them? Dr. Tierney?
Absolutely. So what I teach my clients is that there is a difference between boundaries and barriers. And a lot of times we'll say that we are setting boundaries, but what we're actually doing is erecting barriers. Now, what I say is that it's a boundary when it focuses on you. When you are focusing on what you need, what you're going after, your goals, that's a boundary. A barrier is when we focus on them. Think like the Heisman stiff arm. And actually, if you've ever looked at the Heisman Trophy, you'll notice that the gentleman's arm is out and his head is turned towards what he's trying to block. He's not facing forward of where he's going, what he's trying to accomplish, the touchdown he's trying to make. He's focusing on that person. And it's for that reason why I tell my clients that we should have boundaries instead of barriers, because barriers will take our focus off of what we need to be doing and put it on trying to control them. And when you have your boundaries, your effective boundaries, sugar, you won't even see them. It won't even matter what they're doing. I don't have to go out of my way to erect a barrier for them because they could be doing whatever they're doing and I don't even see it. It does not impact me. It does not stop me from going after what I want to. And this is literally, I'm talking emotionally, I'm talking physically. You can have a boundary that says, you know, certain people, energies, whatever cannot come into your home, you know. So when we are focused in on our boundaries, we make sure that we're paying attention to us and not to them and the thing that we're trying to keep out. Instead, we're focusing on where we're going.
That's very interesting because oftentimes, ladies, we keep our focus on other people, and you'll hear individuals say they and them. And I'm like, who is they and who is them? And how are they keeping you from being able to move yourself forward? Charlotte Avery, in a word, you know, you've always talked about what it means to make certain that your life is blended, that you use barriers, boundaries to get to this place of balance for yourself. What does that look like for you in this season of our lives?
That's a really good question. So in this season of my life, you know, so first of all, let me just say, you know, blending for me is about priorities. It's not about giving equal weight to anything, because that's really what balance is. In this season of my life, you know, I'm giving more energy and more priority to one of my daughters who's getting ready to go to college. Of course, always to family and to business and things of that nature. But in this season of my life, it's also really prioritizing myself in the season of my life, knowing that my children's lives and seasons are changing, just like my life is and the seasons of my life are changing right now along with them. So it's also still, you know, discovering me and where I'm going and my priorities for myself now that they're growing up, because my priorities looked different when they were younger. Now I'm getting ready to have 3 in college and 3 in middle school. I mean, 3 in high school and 1 in middle school. And so my ability to be able to do some things that empower me, empower my clients, I have a little bit more wiggle room because I'm not potty training. I'm not doing a lot of other things. And so for me, that looks like prioritizing myself. It looks like prioritizing the things that bring me joy. It looks like putting more weight into even traveling and getting out and doing more things that I'm able to do that really fill my cup.
I like that, Charlotte. I want to stay there for just a second because you said for you, balance is giving things equal weight. And I know oftentimes people figure out, am I teetering in this direction? Am I teetering, in another direction? While at the same time, there's this mental process that goes into how do I prioritize and what does that look like for me? Do you often find that sometimes there is this heaviness in weighing your priorities so you know what to give attention? For those people who are watching who oftentimes don't know what to pick up, it can be challenging.
Mm-hmm.
I think early on in my motherhood journey and doing all the things that I was doing, it seemed to be difficult because, I wanted to be super mom. I wanted to, whatever that perfect stay at home, work at home mom life looked like, I was really trying to meet somebody else's expectations. And so what I found out is when I decided to stop meeting other people's expectations and really doing what was best for me and my family, it made it so much better. It made it better for me and my attitude and my behavior and in the environment of my home. And also too, I stopped going rogue and I started communicating what was going on with me, even to the people who are in my household. So I think once I really started, really communicating and not looking at other people and what other people were doing and how it was working out for them, it made it so much easier for me.
I love your phrase that you said, going road. I'm going to ask Katrina about that because professionally, sometimes our business mind and who we are just kind of steps in and takes charge. And like Charlotte said, sometimes going rogue is a directionality to take. But then there are other times it's like, did I just leave all these people in my household behind? So miscommunication happens, misunderstandings happen, and then everything again is off kilter when you thought you were doing a good thing. But oftentimes it looks like maybe you were hindering the progress and growth of your family. Talk to us about that, Katrina, with how do people professionally really discover how not only to balance, but to blend, to set borders, boundaries, and barriers so that everyone can flourish?
So I was thinking, as Charlotte was thinking, ooh, I could check some boxes on everything she said. So when we talk about going rogue, and blending, do you have a plan? Like, how many of us have really sat down and made a plan about what we're going to do in our life, whether it be with our family, with our business, our job? Do you really have a strong plan, or are you just winging it? Are we winging it every day? Or do you take time to sit down and say, you know what? This is what I want to do. This is how I'm going to do it. These are the steps I need to take to get there. Or do we just go and fly by the seat of our pants and hope that they don't catch on fire every day? I think, sometimes we go through life and we're thinking about, on our jobs. We walk in, especially if you're an educator, every day is a different challenge, right? Every day there's something new that comes up. And you can't prepare for everything. But what you can do is prepare how you handle it. Whether you take a moment to take a deep breath, I tell people make a O. Just make a O with your mouth and hold in. Before you say something, say, oh. Because you might want to grab that bubble and put that bubble in your mouth before you say something you can't take back. Every day brings different life challenges. And so sometimes you need to be prepared to just take a breath before you react.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is very key when you're looking at everything that is happening, everything that's going on in your life, from your family to your job, who needs you, who wants you, all of that is just being able to step back for 1 second before you react. The best reaction is no reaction.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Now that's a powerful statement. The best reaction is no reaction. In my book Fulfilled, the law of readiness, we talk a little bit about those things. And sometimes you just have to be still with yourself. I think last week, all of us had, a statement related to, some things have to just sit with us.
Mm-hmm.
We're getting ready to go into the break. And when we come back after the break, ladies, I do want to talk about that for a moment. How do you let things just sit with you for a while? Because oftentimes we're the reason why there's chaos. We're the reasons why there's confusion. We're the reasons why there's a lack of communication. And I'm not saying just because we're ladies. Men, this applies to you as well. Children and our young adults. This also applies to you. When we're back after the break, let's talk about how to let things settle before something comes out of your mouth. We'll be back in a moment after the break.
We begin tonight with the people who are really running the country right now.
Now, Trump is often wrong and misleading about a lot of things, but especially about history.
Donald Trump falling in line with President Elon Musk.
In the wake of the unsettling news that MSNBC has canceled Joy Ann Reid's primetime show, The Readout, Roland Martin and the Black Star Network would like to extend an invitation to all of the fans of Joy Ann Reid's MSNBC show to join us every night to watch Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming on the Black Star Network for news, discussion of the issues that matter to you, and the latest updates on the twice impeached, criminally convicted felon-in-chief Donald Trump and his unprecedented assault on democracy, as well as co-president Elon Musk's takeover of the federal government. The Black Star Network stands with Joy Ann Reid and all folks who understand the power of Black voices in media. We must come together and never forget that information is power. Be sure to watch Roland Martin Unfiltered weeknights, 6 p.m. Eastern at youtube.com/Roland S. Martin or download the Black Star Network app.
Welcome back, everyone, to A Balanced Life. And as you can see, there are some things that need to be talked about. Airing things out in such a way where we're able to not only just move our lives forward, but also how does it look for us to help other people move toward betterment? I mean, honestly, we want the best for our children. We want the best for ourselves. And in this climate in which we're living in, it's sometimes hard to find an access point to be able to balance. Dr. Tierney, let's talk about that for a moment, because we've talked about going rogue. We've talked about winging it. We've talked about flying by the seat of our pants, which some of us may be hanging on by a thread. But at the end of the day, what does it really look like for us, not only to take ownership of those things that we need to do, but how do we help others around us discover how to take ownership of the things they're responsible for?
Yeah. Well, the first thing, and this is why I teach my clients boundaries instead of barriers, because we don't have a plan. We're flying by the seat of our pants. And like Katrina said, hopefully they're not on fire, but sometimes they are, and we're doing all the things and really getting in our own way, often because we are not taking that moment to focus in on ourselves. We can't help anybody else until we first helped ourselves. We can't be overly aware of them and we're not self-aware of what's going on with us. The best thing that we can bring to any interaction, any relationship, partnership, business partnership is self-awareness, and so I think a lot of times we are overly focused on them and what they're doing or what they're not doing instead of first focusing on us. What's that scripture? We're trying to take the log, the speck out of our brother's eye before we check the log that's in our own eye. I think before we start looking at helping someone else, we have to first make sure that we are focused on what it is that we need. What is it that we probably need to start working on? What is it, that thing that we're feeling, and when we get into kind of that barrier language, what we're doing is, they did, okay, block. Okay, we're just reacting to everything out here. And when we continue to react to everything out here, it makes us hyper aware of what's going on out here, what they're doing, where they need help. Oh, this sermon really would impact them. Oh, so-and-so need to hear this. But we're not taking that second to stop and say, okay, what's happening within me? Oh, why did that hurt my feelings? Or what is it that I need to be working on? Or girl, why are you procrastinating on that? Or maybe I should. We're not doing that work, and so that's really when we're talking about helping other people. Sugar, first help yourself. First sit you down and have a conversation with you and bring you in front of your coach or you in front of your therapist and say, hey, help me get me together. And then maybe I wouldn't even have to necessarily say anything or do anything to help them. Maybe me just modeling the best me that I can be will then help them to say, oh, well, maybe I should start. Or I see how she moving and no conversation even needs to be had. You just being you will help them. You being the best you will help them be the best them.
Wow, I think that that's a great segue. Charlotte Avery, in her book and you in your book on goal setting, Charlotte talks a lot about, Charlotte, let me know if I get this right. It's the 40-day tone of voice, tone down. I think I got that right. And what Dr. Tierney is talking about is some of the things you write in your book of, how do we, so first let me start with this, hurting people hurt other people. And so how we move in this life oftentimes is predicated on things that we've not resolved. In your book, Charlotte, when you talk about tone of voice, 40-day tone of voice, tone down, what does that look like for people who are trying to, as Dr. Tierney said, manage these unresolved issues, this hurt that we have, how we just go at other people in such a way that we break them all the way down without recognizing that that's not a good look on us if tearing other people down is how we're supposed to elevate.
So here's the thing. I love what Dr. Tierney said about self-awareness. I love that, because when you get to a place that you are self-aware, then you're able to check yourself instead of having people check you. And here's the thing, like when you're willing to go deep with yourself, sometimes it takes somebody else to go deep with you. And sometimes it takes somebody else to hold a mirror to you. And my prayer is that before somebody has to hold a mirror to you, that you can actually just decide, you know what, I'm going to do some self-work and go to the mirror myself. Because here's the thing. When you are able to dig deep and not point a finger at somebody else and actually be like, oh, I am actually the problem, then that is like 80% of the battle right there. Like self-awareness and you being able to be honest with yourself and say, I am the problem. I am frustrated. I am out of control. I am doing this because I'm out of control. I'm trying to control something. Oh, I am a type A personality or whatever. And let me just say, I don't know any mom, any like businesswoman or anybody who is actually not a type A person. So we're always wanting things to be this way, that way. We always have a whole plan for how we want things to be, but how do you act when the plan falls to pieces, right? And so my thing is, when I started to become more self-aware, it was really me caring about my relationship more than the strategy that I had set in place and flipping out that it didn't get followed, right? And so when you are self-aware, you are able to bring yourself in, take a deep breath and be like, okay, what is it that's in me? What is it that's in me that's making me insecure? What is it that's in me that makes me feel like I'm not measuring up? What is it in me? What is driving me to be in this place that is making everybody else miserable? Because at the end of the day, I don't know if it was anybody else's story, but I was making everybody else miserable because I was miserable and I was not satisfied with me.
That's an excellent point. Being satisfied with yourself oftentimes predicates how you respond to other people and other things, Charlotte. And with that in mind, ladies, let's dive for a second into how do we guide people toward wanting to do internal work. It's not pretty or pleasant but to move life forward, it must be done. Give a few tips on what that looks like.
Yeah, that's a tough one. That I'm gonna tell you, that's a tough one. And I say that because it's like that old adage, you can't lead you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. It's that internal work, that self-awareness work, that being self-aware, that's something you have to want for yourself. It doesn't matter how many times I may tell you that this is an issue or point it out to you, or if you don't want to know you better, if you don't think that there's something about you that could be improved, then sugar, we talking to a brick wall, here. And so it's a fine line between, helping someone to do that work and then realizing that the only thing you can do is just make it available to them. Someone asked me once before and was like, well, why don't you tell people that they should coach with you? They should coach. No, I make it available to them. I let them know what the resources are. I let them know, hey, I'm here for you, but I can't make anyone come and do it, because then when you do that, yeah, they'll go to the coaching session, or they may go to the marriage counseling, or they may, do the thing, but they're just kind of like, I'm just checking the box. It won't really get on the inside. So that's a fine line when we're talking about kind of getting people to do that type of work. It has to be something that they themselves value and want for themselves in order for it to really take hold and for them to really get the real benefit of that type of work in their lives.
Absolutely.
I want to add, let me just add this too. I think that when you really want to do the work, I think it's when you are able to let your pride go.
Yes.
And be able to ask somebody, hey, I'm trying to be more self-aware.
Yes.
How am I hurting and harming you? Tell me about me. Tell me what I'm doing that's hurting or harming you so that I can be more self-aware.
And that takes a level of vulnerability.
Yes.
Be vulnerable first with yourself to then be vulnerable and transparent and authentic with someone else. A lot of times we live in this society where everything is just fake it till you make it. Everything, it just looks good on Instagram, but the truth of it, the gooey center of it, if we're not willing to just expose that with the right people, sugar, not with everybody, with the right people, in the right places and in a safe environment, then it's hard to do exactly what you're saying, Charlotte, because that takes a level of vulnerability that most people, that brings on a level of fear and discomfort that we don't want to touch that thing.
Absolutely. It's one of those things when we talk about how do we deal with other people? How do we deal with ourselves? When we come back after the break, we want to dive in a little bit deeper, because I want Katrina to weigh in on what it looks like when dealing with confrontation. Last week we had a very spirited discussion related to mean girls, grown mean girls. And oftentimes we can't move our lives forward because honestly, there are some people who are trying to hold us back. When we come back after the break, let's tackle this Pandora's box.
Hey y'all, welcome to The Other Side of Change, only on the Black Star Network and hosted by myself, Bria Baker, and my good sis, Jamira Burley. We are just two millennial women tackling everything at the intersection of politics, gender, and pop culture.
And we don't just settle for commentary. This is about solution-driven dialogue to get us to the world as it could be and not just as it is.
Watch us on the Black Star Network, so tune in to The Other Side of Change.
Welcome back, everybody, to A Balanced Life. And yes, I'm giggling because I'm excited to jump into this next topic. I know that a lot of people do not like to deal with conflict, resolution. They don't understand what mediation looks like. But we as adults cannot continue to go through life allowing certain behaviors around us to exist. And this also plays a part in how we raise our children. How do we set standards? And as Dr. Tierney talked about, how do we help our children discover what the difference is between a bounder and a barrier? And they need to learn that at a young age. Katrina Smith, come on in and talk to us, if you will, about this notion of when is the right place and time to deal with emotions that keep us from moving life forward. There are people who in our families, there are people in our circles, there are people in our churches, people in our cubicle next to us. Now that people have gone back into the office. And honestly, the pandemic taught us that we could do without a lot of that stuff, and people began to heal. Well, now people are back in the building and back in these spaces, and they're traumatized and triggered all over again.
Oh, you said a mouthful right there. So dealing with your emotions. I want to piggyback on something Dr. Tierney said. We talked a little bit about self-awareness. And so to deal with your emotions, you have to first deal with you. You have to be self-aware of what your triggers are. And then you have to make a plan on how to handle it. When we think about that, that involves self-reflection. How many people spend 10 minutes a day being reflective? You need to take that time every day to be reflective. We're leading up to, dealing with conflict and these mean girls and going back into the office. They're mean girls at the office. And if you were self-reflective, you need to make sure that you're not one of the mean girls that's at that office. You need to reflect on what role you play and how you present yourself to other people. There's a way that some of us would say we deal with it like, oh, no, she's not going to talk to me like that. Oh, wait a minute, sugar. But there's also another way we can handle that. We can remove ourselves from those situations. When people approach us, we can say, you know what? I don't get down like that. I'm not for that. I'm not going to partake of that conversation. You can walk away. One of the things we tell our children when they're young, if someone's not being nice to you, take your toys and go home. Well, take yourself and go home. It's okay to do that. It's okay to remove yourself from awkward situations, from situations where you feel bullied, where the mean girls are attacking you. It's okay to be okay with yourself. First, you have to be okay with yourself. And if you're not comfortable with yourself, then you fall prey to those that would do those things. I just think that as we start to go back into the office, as we are preparing our children for what's next, we have to take those reflective moments and sit with ourselves and reflect on what we do and how we interact with others.
I think that those are very important tips. Charlotte Avery, you have children and they're young children and they're moving into college spaces, high school spaces, middle school spaces. And how have you trained your children to navigate those things because you teach skills at home that you expect for them to employ when they are out of your presence, but yet they come up against kids who don't have the same type of home training that your children have. How do you help them navigate those spaces and the nuances of those behaviors when they're away from you?
So one of the things that I tell my children, even my younger children who are going to spend time at their friends' houses and, things of that nature, my kids that are in college or what have you, I have to always remind them that I know the lessons that they've been taught here at home. I know the things that, how we run our household and all of the different, all of those different things. But I often remind them that everybody's household is not like your household. Everybody hasn't been taught the same lessons that you've been taught. And even if they have, they may have been taught those lessons differently. So I try to remind them, first of all, to be kind to people and to remember that everybody's parent is not your parent. Everybody's household is not your household. So while you may have, roommates in college who are doing all kinds of crazy things, You remember the lessons that you were told. And listen, I'm not a parent who, my husband and I, we do a good job or we think we do a great job of, instilling really great values in our children. But guess what? Our children are still individuals outside of us. And so we, even as their parents, have to remember that too, that, okay, we taught them these lessons, but they may slip and slide every now and then. But here's the thing. It's giving our children grace. It's teaching our children how to give other people grace. It's reminding them of who they are and whose they are. And just remembering, listen, everybody is not you. And so you have to really, be careful how you're interacting with people, because it's also too, you don't want to be so holier than thou or what have you, but you've got to remember the things that you have been the things that you've been taught. And we have conversations, even with our emerging adults, we have conversations with them, reminding them, listen, you're going through this, but you've got to remember the things that have been ingrained inside of you. We all want to, we train our children up in the way that they should go and pray that when they're old, it won't depart from them. But at the same time, it's teaching them to not so much be tolerant of the things that other people other things that people do that might be out of pocket, but it's also giving them grace to be exactly who they are.
I don't want to move away from this too fast, because I need to pivot just a second on how do we prepare children and adults as well as young adults to, oh Lord, I want to say this right, speak up for themselves when they see that gaslighting is happening. Because oftentimes that goes back to not wanting to deal with conflict. Where does that confidence come from? And how do we give it to people to have power in their voice, to speak up for themselves? Ladies?
Oh, I have a grandson. So you say how early? My grandson is in second grade. And Mimi has already started working with him on how to speak up for himself. Because we send our children out into the world and they're going to run into all, like Charlotte Avery said, they encounter people who have different upbringing than what we teach at home. And I never want him to be ill prepared for what he might experience at school. So it starts early. We start early about teaching them, how do you engage with people? What do you do when you don't want to be around someone that makes you feel uncomfortable? I think it's never too early. My middle grandchild is 2 years old. I've already gone to the daycare to see who she's playing with. How does she handle kids? What does that look like? Who are the people engaging with her? Who wants to be her friend? So I don't think it's ever too early to start the conversation about how you must conduct yourself and what that looks like. It's not the same conversation that maybe Charlotte has with her emerging adults, but that conversation at 5 and 7 years old about loving yourself, respecting yourself, knowing your value. Those are all important conversations, even at an early age.
Charlotte?
I love what Katrina just said. I'm not even going to say I think. I know for sure that when we teach our children to have positive self-talk at a very young age, and when we model it for them, it is so impactful and very powerful for them. And not only that, but we also teach them by how we show up in the world as their parents. Dr. Jacquie, you're very aware that I will go to school in a minute, but when I go to school, there's a different me that shows up. Like, I'm not the same me that goes to school to drop off lunch when I'm going to school to advocate for my children. And there have been times when my children were in elementary school, middle school, and high school, when I had to go to school and deal with a teacher or an administrator about something pertaining to my children. But when I came, the same person that my children saw when they left home was not the same person that they saw show up at school. They saw me with you would like to say suited and booted. They saw me with hair done, makeup done, heels, briefcase, being able to sit at a table, talking eloquently. And even though I may have been mad and ferocious about something, but still being able to be calm, cool, and collected so that, I was being very clear and concise about what I was saying and intentional about my words. So even as my children have gotten older, even my kids in high school, like some of them, because they have seen how I have conducted myself and what I have modeled for them, they are the ones now who are writing emails to their teachers and administrators and saying, putting things in there that are so that they can actually really speak for themselves before I ever have to get to school, because I have modeled it for them. And so they know that if all else fails, if what they have been taught that they've put into action doesn't come to fruition, then they know it's time for me to come to school. So I think how we teach them when they're younger, what we model before them, it matters.
I can concur with all of that. Everybody, when we come back after the break, I'm going to jump in with Dr. Tierney. You've heard a lot about what is happening and what can happen, but it requires you to be able to level up in your personhood. When we're back after the break, we're going to chat with Dr. Tierney on how to level up.
Hello, I'm Isaac Hayes III, founder and CEO of Fanbase. And right now we're accepting investors in our $17 million round to revolutionize the future of social media. Today, for just $399, you can own 60 shares of stock in Fanbase at $665 a share. Go to startengine.com/fanbase and invest today. While the big platforms have grown too massive and disconnected from their users, Fanbase is building a platform where creators and users truly come first. We've already raised $8.6 million from everyday investors who believe in this vision, and now you can join them. This is your chance to invest in a social media tech company with over 1 million users that is disrupting media by allowing anyone to reach all of their following and monetize their content from day one. The market is changing, big platforms are failing to serve their users, and Fanbase is stepping up to fill the gap. Don't wait until it's too late. Invest now. Invest for yourself and your future. Go to startengine.com/fanbase and own the future of social media.
Welcome back, everyone, to A Balanced Life. And as you can tell, we are here to bring it. We're not going to leave you without tips and tools for your balanced living toolkit. And Dr. Tierney is going to jump right on in and talk to us about how to level up, because some of you have been listening to what we've been talking. You've been like, I don't have that skill set. I don't know what to do. Who's going to help me get there? Oh, I would love to go to that school suited and booted and not in my pajamas and slippers. So how do we level up who we are so that we bring our best self to every space that we're in? Dr. Tierney.
I'm going to give you the answer that I pretty much give for any question along this line. Get a coach. Get a coach, and I say that, it jokingly, but in all due seriousness, because a lot of times we're trying to modify something that we can't see. Okay, so Sugar, right now, if you were to look at yourself, right, you can see your hands, your arms, you can see your chest, your abdomen, but you can't see your neck. I don't care how much you crane your eye, you cannot see your neck, and so that's the value of having a coach, having someone that can look at you and say, okay, I see a little something. When you said this, it kind of connects to, it sounds like, are you struggling with, okay, wait a minute, it might be your vision might be a little blurry because I'm hearing a little, or I'm seeing a little, here's a pattern here. When we have a coach, someone that is dedicated to helping us, someone that is not our friend, not our family, so they can take an objective view, then they are able to truly help you clarify your goals. They are able to help you see the patterns and the habits that are getting in the way of you actually achieving your goals. And they can hold you accountable to what you said you wanted to do. And so trying to do this by ourselves, trying to do this in a silo, we're already setting ourselves up for failure just in that. We were not created to do life alone. You can see that all throughout the Bible. We are meant to be in community with someone else. So if we're talking about wanting to level up, first defining what that even means for you, because their level up might not be your level up, and that level that they on might crush you, sugar. So you got to define, what does level up mean for you? What are your goals? And actually working towards that in a way that will help you not just achieve it, but be able to maintain it and sustain it. And so trying to do that by yourself, sugar, you invite somebody into that place. Get you a coach. And it doesn't have to be me. I would love to be your coach. I would love to schedule a free session with you. I would love for us to talk, and so that you can actually achieve what it is that you really want this year for real this time. But even if it's not me, even if I'm not your person, find your person. The coach has a coach. I have a coach. I have a business coach and a personal coach. I have somebody that tells me about me, that looks me eyeball to eyeball and say, ma'am, now you telling the sugars this, ma'am, and hold me accountable, and so there's no shame in it. There's absolutely no shame in it. But that is the secret weapon to all these successful people that you see. That's their secret weapon. They have a coach. Athletes, a coach. Professional speakers, a coach. There's somebody that they have in their corner that is helping them to get out of their own way so that they can actually achieve their goals. So if we're talking about what do you need to do, number one tip, get a coach. That's what you need to do right now. Sugar, get a coach. Make that your 2025 goal. I'm going to get a coach, period. And stop.
I like that. Getting a coach is important. But there are going to be some people that say, Dr. Tierney, I hear you. I love your passion. Everything you said made great sense. But I am paralyzed by fear to be transparent. I am paralyzed by fear to be transparent. How can people determine their personal access point to saying, you know what, today I just might bite the bullet and move on and go forward and get somebody to help me. But there is something that's paralyzing them on the inside that they just can't get over.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I'm going to answer this in two ways. Okay. First, let me go straight spiritual, straight to the Bible. This is why the Bible tells us that God did not give us the spirit of fear. Okay. So what that means is that you will feel fear, but that spirit of fear, that is something that is sent to stop you. That is an attack. That there's something that okay, I need to get a coach. I want to accomplish this. So the enemy knows, okay, if I can stop her from doing this, if I can stop him from taking that step, then I can keep him, I can keep her, I can keep them from actually manifesting and stepping in their purpose, that thing that God has for them. So let me keep hitting them with this fear. Let me keep their mind racing. Let me keep their heart pounding. Let me keep them from going in that direction. Because if I can stop them from actually taking that step, then I can stop everything that's supposed to happen in their life. I can stop the generational blessing that's supposed to be released in their life. That is the number one tactic that the enemy uses to get us in our own way. So that's the first thing I want you to understand about that fear that you're feeling. The second thing I want you to understand is that there are times when we just got to do it scared, sugar. I did a whole episode on this whole faith over fear concept. And so we're not, it's when we say that, it's not saying that, oh, if I have faith, then I won't feel fear. Yes, you will. You absolutely will feel that fear. But having that oomph to know that I have to do it, even though I'm afraid. Even if I have to crawl, even if I have to take a baby step, even if I have to go look at that lady website 4, 5, 6, 7, 12, 11 times to make sure that she the one, or that I feel comfortable, or whatever that is, we have to sometimes take that baby step anyway in the face of that fear. This is why I always say, maybe I'm not your coach. Maybe you don't feel comfortable with me. Maybe there's another coach that when you see them, something resonates on the inside that you like, okay, maybe I can lean in to that person. And let me tell you, sugar, when you're talking to a coach or even a therapist, there will be something in you that will let you know if that is your person or is that's not your person. Okay. And I can tell you this, when I'm connecting with someone, I am also listening to see if God sent you to me, or if I need to connect you with somebody else that I feel like you might be, better suited, to talk with. So understand that even if you take the baby step and that's not that thing, trust that thing on the inside of you that's saying, okay, this is my person, or this isn't my person, or this is the direction. And if you're not quite sure, and if you're not quite, this is again, where then you go into your community. Hey, let me talk to my pastor. Hey, let me talk to, my best friend, because I'm thinking this might be it, but let me just bounce that thing off of someone else, but understand, just because you feel that fear, that doesn't mean you get to stop. The number of things that we do scared, that's really that fear, that's the door to your next level. That apprehension, that is really where you need to lean into. I don't do anything. If there's a new opportunity, the first time I recorded on here, sugar, I cried. That first morning, I was terrified, like, oh my God, I'm going on TV. But I knew I had to do it because I felt the fear. Remembering, again, that's the number one tool that the enemy tries to use to stop you. So I want you to look at that fear from those two angles, and then you make that choice. Am I going to let this fear hold me back and get stuck right here where I'm at? Or am I going to lean in, take the baby steps, make sure I'm prayed up and understand what's happening in the spirit, and then move forward with that confidence, knowing that God got me. He's going to send me to the right place.
Absolutely. I'm going to ask Charlotte Avery to jump right in on this, because oftentimes we have to do it scared. We have to do it afraid. But at the same time, we also have to do it in our own time.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And doing it in your own time, I don't know how that looks like, what that looks like for some people. But for me, doing it in my own time, I was really sick and tired of being sick and tired. Like, at what point are you going to be sick and tired of going on the hamster wheel? At what point are you going to be sick and tired of yourself? Because when you're actually sick and tired of being sick and tired, I get fear and I get the paralysis of analysis. But when you're actually sick and tired of being sick and tired, it's pain. When it hurts you enough, when pain hurts you enough, pain drives you to change. Pain drives you to change. Tweet that, okay? And if it hurts you enough, then it's going to drive you to change. So for me, when it hurt me enough and I was continuing to beat my head against the wall, thinking that I was going to change and I wasn't. But when it hurt me and it hurt my relationships and it hurt my marriage and it hurt my children and it hurt the people around me and it hurt me and the fact that I was the cause of it, no. It was no more paralysis of analysis. It was no more fear. It was, I have to change. And so I want to know, and I want somebody to look at themselves and ask yourself, how much pain is it causing me? Because pain will cause you and drive you to change.
All right, bring everybody in, because last week we ended with telling people what they're not going to do, what they shouldn't do, what they can do better. In the time that we have left, let's consider, in being bold and balancing and trying to discover how to move on to next, each one of you give what someone's next step should be from your perspective. Let's start with Katrina. Muted.
I think first and foremost, your next step should be pray. Pray. Take a moment and pray to get your directionality.
I like that. Charlotte Avery?
My thing is to prepare and have a plan. Prepare and have a plan. And know what are going to be the pieces and parts of your plan.
I love that. Dr. Tierney.
So everybody done went with these P's. So we're going to pray. We're going to prepare the pieces and parts of our plan. And so I'm going to make mine fit into this P because I've already kind of given you mine. So what I'm going to say is, please go get a coach. Please go get a coach. Pray, prepare, and put the pieces and parts of your plan, and then take that plan and please go get a coach, because then the coach can help you plan do what you need to do, and then get you a Christian coach, because then y'all can pray together and you would hit them goals. There we go.
I agree with everything y'all have said. I'm going to take my P is pivot. Sometimes everything that you're trying to do, you may need to abandon it, because you need to pivot to what you really hear God saying about when you pray, when you get your plan and you prepare together, and when you've got yourself a please get a coach. You have to determine whether or not you need to pivot from everything that you've tried so that you can really be successful in the things that you need to do. When we come back after the break, I'll give my reflection.
What's up, y'all? Look, Fanbase is more than a platform. It's a movement to empower creators, offering a unique opportunity for everyday people to invest in Black-owned tech, infrastructure, and help shape the future of social media. Investing in technology is essential for creating long-term wealth and influence in the digital age. The Black community must not only consume tech, we must own it.
Discover how equity crowdfunding can serve as a powerful tool for funding Black businesses, allowing entrepreneurs to raise capital directly through their community through the Jobs Act.
Welcome back, everyone, to A Balanced Life. And today we have offered you some tips and tools that can allow you to begin to move yourself forward. Whether you are the person who is in the hot seat, who's trying to be superwoman and do it all, whether you are the individual who has a plan and you know what is next for you to do, even if you're trying to help your children and the young adults in your life move their lives forward, it all requires you to take a deep introspective look and discover what's your platform to be able to do the things that you need to do so that you can live seamlessly toward balanced living. We've already told you it's not going to be easy, and there are a lot of ways to approach it. So figure out where your access point is. Allow yourself to dive right in and get going in what you need to do next. Thank you, everyone, for watching A Balanced Life with Dr. Jacquie here on Black Star Network. Bye now.